Everyone's watching stocks and crypto, but this week, the real story is the dollar sliding while gold and silver rip higher. When that happens, it's often the market quietly saying, risk is changing, and you're either positioned for it or you're not. In today's video, we'll break down what's driving the dollar move, why metals are surging, and what we'll be watching on charts for stocks and crypto next. And welcome back, everyone, to this week's video. First thing on the headline, you've got gold and silver ETFs absolutely pumping. Gold has hit an all-time today. Silver is also hitting all-time highs. This is just like amazing news to see. On that topic, it's kind of looking that we're going slowly a bit risk on because even the S&P 500 closed at a new all-time high today. So very interesting news come across. And why is all these things happening? Because the US dollar, the DXY, is tumbling downwards. And that generally means good things for risk on assets. That generally means good things for Bitcoin. So we'll definitely be covering some insights as to what we think is happening over there. Because when the dollar drops and metals spike together, it often signals that the market is hedging policy and geopolitical risk, even if stocks haven't fully repriced yet. So it's going to be an interesting insight as to how we are seeing the next risk on or risk off assessment and judgment to kick into gear over the next couple of weeks. So, as we are on the topic of Bitcoin over here and it's being affected by the DXY, hopefully we can take on a bit more risk on narrative. And when we talk about Bitcoin, the next thing that's very important as well is Ethereum. So we've got some really interesting news. While all this price movement is happening, you've got fundamental news just coming through. You've got unemotional technologies held by Fundstrat Tom Lee. He is just buying more Bitcoin, like $117 million purchase to scoop up 40,000 Ethereum. Like, it just goes to show the conviction in their particular market. The next up, we have another very interesting news. Now, the US Senate is set to vote on the crypto market structure bill for this particular Thursday. Now, many of us do know that a government shutdown is probably coming into effect this particular Friday. So if this gets pushed through and passed, possibly, then we would be looking at some progress. But definitely don't think it will be all done by this particular Thursday, but hopefully we can get some progress going. How much the government shutdown is going to affect us, we don't know yet, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But hopefully, we can get the US government moving as quickly back into gear. The next very important information that we have and upcoming relative to some macro news, the next FOMC meeting is in about 7 hours. So that's going to determine a lot of the aspect of how the market is looking towards reacting. Right now, we're not expecting any change in the rates to stick at about 3.5 to 3.75. So it is probably likely that the market has priced this in, considering 97.2% is here. So we could be looking at either a move sideways or upwards, hopefully, if the market is already taking that into consideration. But a couple of interesting things over here. As we look at the DXY, we are just touching a trend line over here, a descending trend line. And look, if we break through down to this, the next levels would be too interesting to look at would be around the 90 level. So definitely have got some more room to move on the DXY based on some prior support. We've got Bitcoin over here, mind my chart, but I do love very many things that help me give me a bit of a distinct edge. I'm not an Ichimoku kind of guy. I just like to stick to my normal lines. But Bitcoin currently, based on Fibonacci of prior movements, is just under the 90,000 level. That's psychological level as well. But over the last couple of days, it has been making some trending lines on the daily, and it's holding its support. So we just kind of have to see that, will it hold the support while metals keep moving? Is that risk appetite resilient? If no, is the risk off spreading? Just very interesting to see. But for now, I'm happy that it's holding support and it's trending a little bit upwards. That's going to help us determine later onwards whether it's going to break upwards or downwards. But when we talk about Bitcoin, we definitely have to give some respect to Ethereum as well. And Ethereum versus Bitcoin, based off our last video, we did say that it's been trending down and it's had a bit of a breakout and it's been retesting. If we want to see any strength in the risk on markets, then Ethereum Bitcoin is definitely going to need to make a show. So hopefully we can see some upward trend over here as we are coming towards testing this little support over here again. But if we do have a continuous move upwards, we can look towards a risk on appetite. From
Okay.
here onwards, we will get a bit of technical execution and analysis from Stephen.
Well, yeah, I can go home now. I don't have to worry about hearing anything now there that you've done all that. Following on from that really, really good thorough analysis there directly, we'll go with Bitcoin initially. So remember how we were talking about Bitcoin firstly last time?
Mhm,
The resistance and the support level, we're still sandwiched right in between those areas. That's pretty
mhm,
much about it. It hasn't really changed much from there. One most important aspect though, why this matters, have a look at this. Look at that bounce directly off a support level.
mhm,
That I think is the biggest point,
mhm,
more than anything else. Okay, since we were speaking last time. So on since the weekend, that has been the biggest point right there in terms of that bounce off that. Now you can go back to the previous video. I haven't added that level in, but look at that. It's actually hit it pretty much right to the cent. Okay, that is really, really huge. But another area of interest here is it's actually now bouncing directly off a short-term level of interest right up here, okay, in terms of a short-term moving average. So we're really sandwiched between all of these areas here. That is a big, big, big aspect to really keep in mind. And we've got a lot of these still turning downwards at this point.
mhm.
So there's a really large amount of all of these aspects going on. That's in terms of moving averages. If we go across the Ichimoku, this is actually really interesting to the lagging indicator now actually bouncing back upwards. So it's not actually turned downwards anymore. So this is
Interesting.
actually really fascinating now. We could be having that big bounce back coming back upwards now, and the cloud is actually now coming back, bouncing back upwards through that cloud. So that's
Mhm,
actually quite a positive sign that we've actually got going there. Moving across to Ethereum, once again, bouncing off a prior support level right there as well. Once again, to the cent. Very, very fascinating overall. And it's actually bouncing up through another prior support resistance level there as well. Okay. Now, these, I have not touched these levels. They are all still prior levels overall. Go back to the last video as well if you want to. Why does
mhm,
this matter? These are very established levels. Okay. So all established way back from 2021 and 2022. So these are very, very key levels from a long, long time ago. And the lagging indicator as well, coming up basically through these price levels back there, back from a long, long time ago as well. Back through that Tenkan Sen, that's that blue line, back through
mhm,
those areas overall as well too. So these are all very, very key Ichimoku metrics. So extremely interesting indicators overall that's going on. So that's just to back up all of those things that you were just mentioning there as well in terms of crypto.
mhm,
Okay, so that's Bitcoin and Ethereum. DXY, you were talking about that as well. Looking at the Ichimoku on that, okay, that's looking dreadful still. Simple as that. So really, when we're looking at those aspects there, that's the kind of thing that you're still looking at. It's still very, very negative overall. So that's the circumstance behind that. Now, if we take a look over at the SPY, okay, that's looking very, very strong overall. Lagging indicator is heading upwards in terms of north. It's well above both Tenkan-sen and the baseline. That's the circumstance there. The Qs, pretty much the same circumstance overall as well too. Why does that matter? Well, we're above the cloud. We're above those indicators. Lagging indicators are moving upwards. Very strong overall. No reason to basically say that we're heading in any downwards area there. The biggest thing to really, really note though, you still got the lagging aspects of the Qs behind the S&P because you're still lagging behind all of that previous resistance area that's going on behind all of that. Gold, okay, well, gold, look at that, really, really strong. There's absolutely no doubt about that whatsoever. So overall, that's very, very strong in terms of lagging indicators there. And it's very, very high up against all of these other indicators here that's going
Mm,
well. But the only thing we've got, there's a potential thing here that really, really matters overall is the fact that it's very overextended from these indicators here. Now, these indicators also, if we take a look across into the moving averages, you can see how far overextended they are from even the short-term indicators there as well too.
mm,
These can indicate that we could be potentially pulling back to these levels in the short term. That matters quite a lot in relation to the fact that we could be so far extended that this pullback can occur. This is really what has basically shown in terms of silver in this short period of time as to what actually happened on Monday, or actually, yeah, well, not Monday, Tuesday, I should say, which was yesterday, where we had that very, very large extension in terms of SLV in particular, where we actually had yesterday's trading session over in the US, where we had that extension as high as about 14% in the intraday session. And then it basically came back and lost all of its gains pretty much in the intraday session after a very, very high options volatility rise during the intraday session. So very, very incredible in terms of such a large rise in the actual share price or the unit price of the SLV. And then it just went whoop, lost it all during the intraday. It was absolutely massive in terms of what actually happened during that session. Okay. And here's the 5 minute chart in terms of the Tuesday session that you can actually see. Ignore the times down below because we're actually in Australian time here at the present time. But in terms of this 5 minute chart here, this is what we're talking about. You can see the massive rise that actually occurred during the intraday session over in the United States. And then about halfway through the day, how much of a decline you actually saw during that particular time. So it was quite dramatic overall. Okay, so that's silver overall there. I'll just move. Okay, so where does that leave us for this particular week? Overall, well, we could actually have a few scenarios that are actually coming into play overall for this particular week. Firstly, what happens in terms of, say, risk assets going up? Well, this can actually apply in relation to conservative as well as aggressive investors. Basically, so what would confirm this is, say, if the dollar stays weak, which as obviously you can see that from the charts themselves, if the dollar does stay weak and the stocks and crypto reclaim that structure, say they actually go through those resistance areas that we were discussing overall there by making higher lows and then breaking that resistance, then basically that would confirm the situation where the risk assets would actually be going up. That would be good in terms of a scenario there if you wanted everything to actually be going up. But obviously, don't just chase that first green candle that you see. That would be the thing to be going for overall in that situation. For scenario two, take a look and see if any risk assets are going down. That can still be good for conservative as well as aggressive investors. Why is it good for aggressive investors in particular? You can start seeing if there's anything you want to short. What would that be good for in terms of those things that are breaking? Taking a look firstly in terms of which particular stocks have lost the support while gold is actually maintaining its bid. You'd be able to see whether or not gold is still actually maintaining itself. That's giving you an idea that basically people are looking for a safe haven. So overall there, that's one key thing there. And then you can see what's actually losing support, and then you can go for anything there that's actually worthwhile in terms of an investment there. Obviously, you'll also see what's actually rising in volatility in terms of anything in the Nasdaq, for instance, or any of the altcoins, and then you can actually go for anything there that you wanted to short overall there too. Obviously, the conservative investors will be going for anything there that they actually are interested in terms of making sure they can actually hedge anything or get rid of anything there that's actually not suiting their portfolio any further. Obviously, scenario three in particular as well is just anything if we're still stuck in choppy range for anything in particular as well there too. Things when it's actually going up, down, up, down, up, down, and not doing anything overall there. Now, markets, majority of the time, don't move. They just basically keep on going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and just go sideways. Okay. Now, that's where we have to be patient. We just need to wait for whatever's going to happen and be able to see what's happening from there. Now, that is where we just do nothing. We just take limited action and we just look for things in terms of what can we actually do in terms of that sideways chop. And with that, mate, I'll pass it right back to you.
This week, the market's hidden message was the dollar weakening while gold and silver surged. A sign uncertainty is being priced somewhere, even if stocks are still deciding. Now, do us a favor, comment a risk on or risk off, and tell us which chart you want next week, BTC, SPY, or gold. We'll see what we can do. This isn't financial advice, it's just how we think about the markets.